Hey everyone, I've been busy doing some interesting analysis. Today we're going to cover how to do data analysis using LLM as your Copilot. And what's interesting is about 4 years ago, I did a project where I took data from my calendar and analyzed it to see who some of my most valuable relationships were. So we're going to try to repeat that. The goal of that analysis was mine Google Calendar data to find most valued contacts. So what I did about 4 years ago was a project in the R programming language where I wrote code that would go collect Google Calendar data, and basically it would pull who I met, when I met them, and how much time I spent with them, and it would turn it into a CSV file with name, email, last met, date, number of meetings with that person, and total time in minutes or hours. And then we would push this data to another script that would do some interesting charts and graphs on how I was spending my time, how much time was being spent in what type of meetings, and also which contacts were more valuable versus less valuable, some sort of a rating system. So the whole analysis took me, I'd say, about 3 to 4 weeks to build and put it into some sort of a structure. So I thought it'd be good to benchmark how this project would look if you did this with LLMs or the Copilot, see how that goes. So this time around, instead of doing it in R, I picked a new language, which I know I can read, but I'm not proficient at it. So I took Python and ChatGPT as a Copilot, and thought, hey, let's try to repeat that project I did a while ago and see what it takes. And so here, but I also did something different, which is I made it slightly different, or more difficult, I should say. I said, get data from Google Calendar, which for me is about 6 years of historical data. Throw that into a CSV file, but then take that data for all the contacts I met and go mine my Gmail to find a few other details, like what was my last conversation, subject of my last email, if I could find a telephone number in that email for them, if I could find their Twitter handle, and even their LinkedIn. And then combine all that data, again, do some scoring of those contacts to see using RFM analysis, and then throw that back into a CSV file. And then that CSV file gives me a full, very similar to this file, of an analysis of which contacts are valuable, and it's appended a bunch of this data. Now, here's the most surprising and interesting part. This took me 3 to 4 weeks. I was able to do this with Python and brand new language. I was able to do all of this in less than 24 hours. And honestly, less than 8 hours. Didn't take me very long. So I'm going to show you how I did that, and what this means is your team members, if they're doing data analytics or any kind of data science, I think with LLM as a Copilot, become a lot more efficient. So the way I did this is, number one, obviously set up, install Python, Jupyter Labs, and set up your environments variables for both OpenAI and your Google APIs, so that you can actually read your calendar data. You have to give your Google admin has to give you permission for you to be able to read that programmatically. But once you've done that, you basically go to any computer window and set up side by side 2 windows of Jupyter. I'm spelling this completely wrong. Jupyter Notebook on one side, and your ChatGPT on the other. And then basically you start with ChatGPT, in the first query, you give it your overall plan, but don't ask it for writing the whole code at the same time, and ask for the first snippet or first cell of code. In this case, I said, hey, we're gonna write this whole function, or a bunch of cells in Jupyter Notebook, which are going to perform all of this function, but we're gonna do one cell at a time. So first, write Python code that will mine my calendar one at a time, and build out a data frame which has all of that data. So this results in a code block that I then put into my Jupyter Notebook. I test it, and then obviously I guarantee you this is not going to work. It results in some sort of error. I take this error, throw it in here, and then it gives me some iterative code which I will then test again, which might result in error, but eventually you succeed by going back and forth. And obviously every time you go back and forth, you do ask it to display the resulting table so that you can check the work and make sure that it's actually resulting in some sort of success, and display your table. And you can see what type of results you're getting. And you do this over and over again. You do multiple cells. And what's exciting about it is it seems to know everything about how to write code for the different APIs, and gives you eventually a CSV file that I'll show you in a minute. But this was fascinating that all of this work that took me a long time, I got to this like output of CSV file in less than a day. I was doing pair programming where I would come in and had ChatGPT on one side, have my Python notebook on this side, and I'm basically going back and forth between asking ChatGPT to write the code for me. I would insert it here and then have it go through my code and test it. So for example, the calendar one, this is the calendar calendar code that goes and pulls all of my calendar events that have happened over the last 6 years, and you can see it's going through like downloading these thousands of events, and it looks like it downloads like about 25,000 events over the last 6 years, and then does some data parsing to clean up all those events, and then tries to even guess which company these folks that I met with, tries to append industry to some of them. And all of this code, like almost none of it is written by hand. It's all been written by ChatGPT. My job was to be giving it verbose instructions in English in my algorithm. Like I knew exactly what I wanted it to do, how I wanted it to manipulate the data, but I would give it all my instructions in English and then have it write all that code. So that's the code you're looking at over here. I verbatim copy a lot of that code here, test it out, and then sometimes I'll error out, and I'll copy the error over and have it fix it. Here's some scoring that I'm doing. Even this code, like normally, I would write this code and I would think about how to do this. Here instead, I just said, hey, give me a scoring mechanism that would find my most valuable contacts and score them, give them a score between 0 and 100. It found the right package, it imported the right package and kind of set up that scoring automatically, which is pretty cool. But yeah, very, very interesting to see how pair programming, or I should say Copilot programming with ChatGPT really sped up all of the data analysis. And now most of my programming I need to do in a natural language, and that gets copied over, converted to any code, which makes me feel very, very confident that at this point, the coding language pretty much doesn't matter. As long as you can conceptualize what algorithm you want to build, the Copilot will build it for you, and you can debug it along with the Copilot in ways that you couldn't do before. So that's a really interesting, fun experience.